to the ProVal Technology Industry Roundtable. Here today we're going to talk about the outlook of the MSP industry with the many talented folks sitting in front of me, many of which have worked in the MSP industry and in technology for many, many years. Please bear with me as I get through introductions here so that everyone knows all of the parties in this roundtable. So starting with Dan, our RMM administrator. Dan spent 10 plus years doing tech support in a call center and then moved over to Apple Tech Support and then further on to a computer repair business owner and then started an MSP and was a technician for about 3 years before coming along to ProVal Technologies. Next we have Alex Ransby, who's our business operations consultant. Alex started his IT career shortly after serving in the military. He was part of the 101 Air Assault. And really, he then moved on to working to an MSP company, which he then grew by 30% that year. And that's where he found his way over to ProVal Tech. Next to him, we have Ryan. Ryan is our MSP consultant. Ryan has been working with ProVal since about January this year and has been working in the MSP industry for about the past 10 years and in ConnectWise Automate for about the past 7. Next we have our manager of consulting, Chase Murphy. Chase has a bit of a non-traditional IT role. He first worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car and was a manager for many years, did a lot of sales, marketing, etc. Then he went back to school for IT management and network engineering and was fortunate enough to connect with Vikram and come over to ProVal Tech. Next we have Tobin. Tobin is an MSP consultant at ProVal Technology. He got into the IT industry right out of high school, working at a local tech school. And then after that worked for several break-fix companies before starting his journey in the MSP industry in 2007, where then he came over to ProVal Tech and has been working with us. Next to him is Chris Mitchell. Chris has worked in technology for about 16 years in an MSP up in New England, transitioning from a break-fix model, where then he transitioned over to ProVal Tech. And then we have our CEO, Vikram Khanna. Vikram is the founder and CEO of ProVal Technologies. He started his technology consulting career at a Big 5 firm, helping Fortune 500 companies with large transformational projects. On stumbling upon the managed service provider space, Vikram quickly grew very passionate about helping MSP succeed, and the rest is history. And last but not least, we have Steven, our senior DevOps engineer. Steven has worked in the MSP space for 13 years, and his first job at an MSP was actually his father's business, where he worked as a build-out tech and on-site engineer. He came over to ProVal and has been working development ever since. Thank you all for joining me today. Just to get it all kicked off with a question here. I know all of us in this room are with ProVal Technologies, obviously. And for everyone who doesn't know, we are a consulting firm that helps managed service providers really optimize their back-end tools and manage them moving forward. So you all are in a really unique position because you all speak to a lot of MSPs regularly, then see things that other MSPs may not know or see. What is one thing that you've learned while working with many MSPs instead of just one? Tobin.
I think the biggest thing that we can all agree to is that all MSPs suffer from the same problems. There's not one MSP who just has it all figured out. Everybody has problems that they suffer with, and that's why they come to us.
Great answer. Great answer. Anyone else?
That was perfectly put.
Yeah, how elegant. So, what do you think the biggest challenges are that an MSP faces today?
I'd say they have a really hard time finding the right tech talent and keeping and retaining those folks so that they can continue their knowledge. So that's kind of where we've seen that issue with the MSPs, and we try to help them by not having to worry about losing those people. They can outsource a lot of that knowledge to us. So they don't have to worry about losing that initial investment in those folks.
A lot of MSPs have one guy that knows how to do a very critical job at an MSP, and that's where we can come in and be like, hey, you don't need to. What if he's out sick? We can fill that role.
That's what I was going to say as well. Is that a big issue I see a lot is an inability to scale because of an over reliance on a few single points of failure. especially with talent, they can't scale. They hit a certain amount of endpoints, and then everything starts to fall apart. And again, like, it's what we are here for. We are your scaling. Like, we are the MSP scaling. We can help them grow without having to scrounge for the talent that is so hard to find nowadays.
Yeah, very true. I think a lot of that also stems from the fact that a lot of these MSP owners and founders are, they're engineers that started the business that didn't know much about the business world, and they were fixing computers, saw the opportunity, dove in, and they're trying to figure out the business element. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges from a business perspective is, at the end of the day, these guys are technicians that have been handed a business or have adopted a business, and I think just figuring that out, being a small business while trying to service clients, it's a lot for them to juggle, and I think that's that's a big part of the challenge.
Perfect. Yeah, couldn't have said it better. So, how have you seen the MSP community or industry evolve or change since you've been a part of it?
I'd have to say that it's really grown to be a very community-based, where you share a lot of content with each other on like Slack and MSP Geek, and everyone's just working to help each other out and just work through the MSP role. And kind of going back to the first question is, you're kind of in a position where the technician does not have a whole lot of knowledge and are just kind of figuring it out with the community's help, and we can help fill that role with all of our collective knowledge and assisting with any sort of development items or anything.
And pre-existing content. It's not it's just our brains, it's the brains of everyone who has come before us and everyone that's coming after us, and all of the content that we're building too. So it's not just the brains of the people in this room, it's the brains of the hundreds of people before us and the hundreds of people that may be coming after us. That's the collective content pool that we're building.
Yes, Alex.
So I think one thing that I've really noticed, kind of just reading articles or like subreddit, things like that, is that these businesses went from a break fix and now they're having to basically consult their clients on best practices. It's not just a conversation of let's replace that machine. It's like, we need to make sure backups are in place. What is your plan for email security? Like, it's a bigger conversation than just I'm here to fix your one problem at a time. It's more in a consulting role and then scaling upward on that.
And I think there's bigger focus on the industry too. 10 years ago, it was a lot simpler. Today you have to be delivering the solutions that you say you're delivering. Your clients' environments depend on your ability to secure it and keep it up to date and go through all those functions.
A lot of the simplicity thing, a lot of MSPs are moving their stuff to the cloud too. A lot of stuff is moving to the cloud. So, and it's just, that's the business model that's winning. So, yeah.
What? Oh no, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just that's where it's going. That's where the industry's going.
Yeah, no, great points. I would also say that while the world of technology is very old, managed services really came up in like the early 2000s, because it was all value-added resellers before that all they did was sell computers. They had a markup, they used to service those computers, but managed services what kind of pivoted into the service model. And so technically we're only 22 years old as an industry, which is still very young.
And on top of that, for only being 22 years old, in the last, I would say, 5 years, competition is exploding. Everyone's trying to get into the MSP space, so now you have to have an edge. You have to have an industry niche that only you can serve. You have to have something that's better than everyone else, because everyone's trying to MSP right now.
And now you see the rise of the really big conglomerate MSPs.
That too.
All the M&A, buying up all these other companies. And I mean, it's not a bad thing necessarily for the industry, because these big companies have to have good process, so they have to take good care of their partners, because to control that much business, they have to have it under control or it's just not going to work. And when you're trying to write content and take care of that many machines, it can be a lot for an MSP. But we really have seen a lot more of that just in the few years that I've been doing this. I went from seeing all these small, 1 to 2 to 3,000 agent MSPs, and now we see these 20, 30, 40,000 agent MSPs, and it's just a different animal than it used to be.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of time before we see an MSP that's going public, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
to that scale.
Yeah.
So that day is not far away.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say that we have both of those types of clients.
Yes, indeed. We have big and small. We service it all.
Yeah.
Awesome, great stuff. How can someone share their story about how you got your start in the MSP community, or why you came over to the MSP community? Yes.
I was working call center jobs. I like tech, but like that was all I thought I could do. So I worked call center jobs, and then I found a cool work from home thing way back, like 2007 to 2014, before work from home and COVID, and it became mainstream. I did it before it was cool. But work from home came with the price of severe isolation. This is before I married my wife. So I was literally at home with my cat 24/7, 365. And I had to talk to people. I had to put my hands on a computer. I had to put a graphics card in. I had to fix a network cable. And I just looked around and I said, you know what? If they don't want me, they don't want me. I had just gotten my AAS. So I applied at a little MSP in Daytona. They called me in. They asked me what my experience was, and they were like, wow, why haven't you applied? Why didn't you apply 5 years ago? And that's how I found out what MSPs were. And it was a 5-year journey from there before I got here.
Awesome. That's a great story.
I fell into it accidentally. Had met someone at the Chamber of Commerce, our local Chamber of Commerce, and talked about what I did, and come to find out that he owns an IT company. Come to find out that IT company is actually an MSP. So getting into it was different because the MSP industry is so fast-paced, and I think that's one of the problems with MSPs as well, is that it's so fast-paced. You got to hit the ground running, and it's really hard to nurture those people once you hire them. But the different people that I would talk to every day and the different issues I would run into, there was always an ability to expand on your knowledge, and I kind of got hooked on it.
That's awesome. Yep.
Kind of a unique situation. So, before I even joined the Army, and that's kind of where that even came about, I said I wanted to work a desk job, and they said, okay, cool, how about the back of a Humvee? That turned into the field, and I never actually touched the computer that we worked on. So that was a whole side story, but as my career was ending in the service, there was a program offer that allowed me to kind of get basically my MCSA kind of before it was deprecated, and went through that crash course, and basically I fell into an MSP last week. It was like the last 30 days was like applying to jobs and trying to get my name out there. And I thought I was going to work for like Lockheed because I was in Colorado Springs at the time, or like Boeing out there, and just some internal IT job. And the last week as I was packing the car, I get a call from an MSP in Michigan that's like, hey, let's come, let's do this. And I worked there for 2 years before coming to ProVal, and I realized that that's where my passion was. It was like I got to touch any software that you worked in a business, and I got to figure out how it worked. I got to set up all of network switches, which we didn't even go over in the class. I didn't even know that existed. It was more than just setting up a Microsoft server and calling it good enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. It's great to see.
I'll go to from a founder perspective. So my first company that I worked for had 100,000 employees, and I was literally the dot in the ocean. I loved what I did, but I had absolutely no impact or control of what was happening, what was being delivered, and in my soul searching process of, hey, there's something better for me out there. I attended one of the conferences, SMB Nation, and I just discovered this amazing community of small businesses trying to help other small businesses that are growing with their technology needs. And I tell you, the day I stumbled on it, I was like, this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, and it's been very rewarding.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's fun to see everyone come from different areas to the MSP space. So for someone that's coming into the industry, what advice would you give them to be successful? Yes.
As an employee or as a worker in the industry, right?
Either or.
So, as an employee, and it goes hand in hand with my previous story, don't undervalue yourself. It's something I still struggle with to this day, but you don't know unless you put that application in, until you go to that interview and you realize that I do know these questions. I can answer these. I might be able to do this job, because if you don't try, you're not going to get the job, and you're never going to go. You're going to spend 10 to 15 years in call centers. But it's very, very common with the people in this industry to undervalue yourself, because there are some people that try to undervalue you. Just try. Just say, you know what, I've been doing this for a while. It's fine. If I don't get it, then I know what I need to improve on. Just put yourself out there.
Along with that, I want to mention that, once you're finally in that door and you've got that position, don't get complacent. Don't get complacent with yourself or with the method by which your company is doing things. You can always innovate, you can always automate, and you can always make things better for you, for your clients, for your owners.
How I started, I've only worked in MSPs. It's my entire career. And the only way that I got where I'm at is constantly listening to the people around me and my coworkers and learning from them, and reading online and just trying stuff and failing until it clicked, and I still learn from all these guys every day. So you have to listen to the people around you and learn from the people around you.
I'd say you're very fortunate to whoever's coming into the industry, just because there could not be a better place to start your career or end up here, whatever stage of your career you're in, just because of the immense learning that this industry offers.
Yes.
I mean, for true engineers and technicians that actually want to go do stuff, I don't think there is a better place than being at an MSP.
But to that point, you also need to make the most out of it. You can't just sit there and click a button and hope it fixes all your problems. You have to figure out solutions to what your partners need, and you have to listen to people properly, to your point.
Right.
And if you don't listen and bring proper solutions to problems, you're going to end up struggling a lot. And it's going to be frustrating, and it's not going to be a job that you enjoy. But if you like to really solve problems and like to listen, it's a perfect place to be.
You're the agent of your own growth.
Yeah.
You have to put in the effort.
Stop manually restarting that print spooler.
Yeah, exactly. Think about how to save yourself time and money and effort. It's important.
So I'll kind of offer a side point of view. So I keep in contact with those MSSA graduates as the program, and they're in that same boat. They're coming out of the program. They have any opportunity to get into IT as a whole, and I've been recommending to them, if you're going to get in the MSP space, don't necessarily stay forever unless you want to. I said, give it 1 year and decide what you're going to do, and if that's good for you, then stay. Hop around MSPs or develop your skill set, learn to automate. But if you don't like the help desk, or you don't like automating or writing scripts, there are plenty of other IT opportunities, but that will give you the biggest skill set of a wide variety of touching kind of all of the types of IT that you can get into. So then you can decide at that point if this is the right fit for you.
And that's okay. The IT is a very transient field. People don't stay in one place very long, because that's how you get experience with multiple technologies. That is, that's how you manage salary expectations as you move forward. And unless you got a really great gig, most IT folks move along I think the average is 2 to 3 years, and that is okay. Find what is best for you, but then stay there. Once you've found what you want to do, keep working at it until you don't want to anymore.
Great actionable advice. Any other closing thoughts there? Great. All right, switching gears a little bit. Obviously, there's been a lot of movement in our space, just in terms of mergers and acquisitions, especially with the big sharks of our industry. So, what are everyone's thoughts on Kaseya acquiring Data, as well as ConnectWise acquiring Continuum? Is this good for the community? Is this bad for the community? What are your thoughts in general?
As far as Kaseya acquiring Datto, in some sense probably to the ConnectWise Continuum as well. I think a lot of those things are going to be unforeseen for some time. There's goods and bad for all of those items being accomplished. But really, one of my biggest concerns is just like the large companies gobbling up, the large MSPs gobbling up M&As and stuff like that. I think M&As do cause a bit of stagnation, and I think things get a little stale, and they just kind of sit where they're at instead of things being constantly innovated. So I hope that these acquisitions don't kill innovation.
That's excellent points. Yeah, I see it the same way. I mean, two sides of the coin. Sometimes bigger is better because that allows them to invest heavily and give their partners with the best products and services. But on the flip side, I think killing competition is sometimes not very healthy for the industry. I think at the end of the day, keeping the partners and clients' interests paramount should be the end goal for whatever happens in the industry. As long as the MSPs, who are the consumer of all of these services and software, as long as the partners benefit, they're successful, they're enabled, an acquisition can be deemed as successful or not successful, but it really just comes down to how much enablement they're creating for their partners.
Awesome. So, kind of in tandem with the question beforehand, but speaking from an MSP, how an MSP is successful, what do you think the number one component is for an MSP to see success?
Go ahead.
The 4 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. So I guess that's 5 Ps. I can't count.
You're close.
That's why I use a calculator.
Of course you know that.
That wasn't well planned.
Correct, that was off the cuff.
That was great.
Yeah, you don't go into something without planning it first. You just take the extra day or week or month or year to really think through what your goal is and how you're going to get there, because I've seen it time and time again in the MSPs that I've had contact with, not even the ones I've just worked for, but many that they just jump the gun. They doing things too quickly because there's some perceived urgency. It's not going to work out most of the time. It's better to take the extra time, spend the extra money to do something correctly and do it over a long period of time than it is to try to make that quick decision.
And plan at scale. Like the foresight with the planning, and planning is, I think, what everybody wants to say is the most important thing here. Planning, because you see so many MSPs, like he said, just off the cuff make a decision. Say, oh, you know what, I'm gonna support this software now, or I'm gonna offer this service line, or I'm gonna charge, I'll just charge this amount of dollars per seat that they're just pulling out of nowhere. And that's not scalable. That's not, you're gonna get 6 months down the road and realize that was a bad idea because now I'm losing money on a seat. Like I'm losing money every seat I sell now because, I added AV integration to my SolarWinds or something like that. And now you are being harmed for scaling. Now you're losing money the more clients you have, and no one wants to be in a position like that. So planning for the future is paramount.
And if you're unsure how to really accomplish those types of things, there's wonderful resources out there. The partner peer groups, we're here in Orlando right now. We've been visiting the IT Nation Evolve crew, and those are a group of people that get together to work on that industry and share some of those practices and help people break through some of these struggles when they're starting, working on their businesses and things. definitely leverage that community. We talked about it just a few minutes ago. The community is fantastic, and people want to help.
Yeah.
A lot of IT people just like to help people, so that's why they get into it in the first place. That and they like computers and whatnot. But
Yeah, I agree. I think going back to the same point of a lot of these business owners were never trained formally to run a business, right? They were formally trained to operate computers and fix computers, but I think leveraging a lot of the resources like peer groups and IT Nation, there's just a tremendous amount of wealth of information available that they should be leveraging, so they can avoid all the pitfalls and mistakes that their peers may have made.
There's that. I mean, I owned a business. I failed for those reasons. I was a technician that loved computers, that wanted to do myself, that wanted to make my own decisions and build something that I loved and something that helped people. I failed because of business. I didn't consider the things I needed to consider. It is great if you're enthusiastic and you own a business. You have to be. But you also need, if you don't understand the business, get someone who does, or a group of people who do, to help consult you through it.
One of the biggest issues I see is business owners not delineating responsibility in their organization. They're trying to manage administration, they're trying to manage business, invoicing, as well as also doing a tech role. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do
CEO's logging in to reset an AD password. Why?
It doesn't help you be successful.
Yeah.
If you want to handle the business side, handle the business side and hire people to do tech work. If you want to do the tech work, you do the tech work and then you hire somebody, a team. There's plenty of companies out there that will assist you in making sure that your business is running, invoices are getting out, etc. Don't try to do both. It's too much work.
Mm-hmm.
Great point. Great point. What do you think the future of the MSP community is? And this is open-ended for a reason, because I just want to see where you guys take it.
With all the M&As, I mean, I think conglomerates are going to eventually just take this over one day, and I think you're going to see big players like Microsoft, with Lighthouse and et cetera, come in and really put a dent in the organization, in the industry, I should say. There's good and bad to it. I do hope, that there's mom and pop shops that still get to do their thing and make their money and keep local people happy. I think that's one of the biggest things is, I really enjoy is working with the local people. You work at the MSP, you go see them, you meet them, you get to know their families, etc. You really build relationships, and I think that these big companies coming in, I think it's a bit of a detriment to the relationships that are being built. So,
as a lot more mechanical processes can get automated, right? I think MSPs, at least the smaller ones, will start refocusing on customer support, like direct customer support, and then at ProVal we do a lot of automation for MSPs, and we give MSPs the time to be more customer facing, right? So I think that's something that could be, as automation just becomes more and more prevalent in the industry, and these tools get better and better, that having a more client facing approach is going to be what's happening.
Shameless plug for ProVal.
It's basically where I was going to head. As soon as you said the client-facing approach, it's basically going to turn into it's not about the back-end process. It's about what are you saying, what do you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the client's going to come to you and say, I have these problems, and you're going to be able to, as a human, decide, okay, I need to implement this, and there will be solutions out there for it. Right.
Well, also as the industry is going to continue to mature, a lot of the core managed services elements will get commoditized, and I think that's where a lot of the bigger players will definitely be more prevalent. I do feel there will be a lot of opportunities for a lot of niche areas, so cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, reporting and data warehousing. So there's a lot of fields that will crop up where companies will still need that innovation, and I feel like our country, like, we're built on small business as a backbone, and that should never stop, in my opinion, because that's what makes America that great. And continuing to see that innovation, which always comes from those smaller businesses, I think that'll kind of keep up.